All right, guys, welcome back. We're going to continue from where we stopped last time. If you still remember, in our last class, we're able to display questions based on the subject that you pick from the home page. For example, here now, if I click on this HTML, we are going to see the question related to HTML. So going back there and selecting JavaScript, you see that we have question related to JavaScript. We have the question progress through this text, and at the same time we have the progress bar that here, which we can see by clicking on this button to move to the next question that we have. And once we get to the last one and you click on the button again, we're going to be taken to the results page, and this is where we want to work on today. So we want to work on this results page, and what do we want to do there? This is what we want to do. We want to be able to display the results of the quiz that was taken based on the subject that you select there. And as you can see from the URL, we are sending the stuff that was answered there like that. So which is JavaScript, which is what we have there. And what else do we want to do on display on this page? We want to display the results. So this result that we want to display on this page is something that we want to add to the URL, because we want to make the URL to be shareable. And what does that mean? It means the user can share the results page URL to anybody to showcase what they got from the quiz there, depending on the topic that they pick from the list. So how do we do that? So in this URL, we want to be able to embed the data like the total. So the total question that was answered, for example, 60, and at the same time, we want to be able to embed the correct one that the user picked there. Here, for example, 45. But now this is not secure, because the user can just modify the content of this total and this correct, and then send it to their friend to see that they actually got more than what they have there. So what do we want to do here? The data that we have here, we want to be able to convert it to something that the user cannot just change easily like that. So it's not going to be that much. What we want to do is that we want to encode the data here, and later on this page should be able to decode the data and display the correct stuff to the user on the screen. And how do we encode the data? Imagine we have something like this. So this data, we have total to be 67, just like what we put in the URL there, and what the correct here to be 45. So this data now we want to encode it so that we can add it to the URL. And how do we encode it? First, we need to convert the data to string. And how do we convert the data to string? So we can have the data string here, which is going to be the JSON like this, which is going to be string file. So which you can use to convert any JavaScript object into a string. And once we press enter, then calling this data string, then we should have the data in string. So this is the object, or this is the string representation of it. But now this is not what we actually want to put in URL. We need to encode this data so that the page can decode it later on and display the correct information to the user. So how do we encode this one? So we can have the encoded data, and this our encoded data now, it's going to be this bit to A. So this bit to A is what we can use to encode a string there. And once we press enter yeah, so so we're supposed to have this data string. So it's going to be this data string. Press enter. Then this encoded data now should have the data that we are looking for. So encoded data, and as you can see, we have encoded the data from this object into something that we can easily put in the URL. And when the user share the URL with their friends, family, or anybody they are sharing the URL to, then the page will load and decode the data based on the string that is passed. Because this string now, we can decode it and get the data that is inside it by reversing the process. And we're going to see how to do this. Then this data now, in place of what we have here, is what we can now send, or what we can put in the URL. And here now we can use data and pass it directly like this. But I don't want to use data, so I will be using the D key to represent the query string that we are passing there. So here now, this query string, this page should be able to decode it and display the correct data to the user by using the UI that we have here. But before we start dealing with the UI, so let's get all the necessary data ready first. And what do we want? What do we need to do? So on the page, on this our result page, we need to be able to get the data that is being passed in the URL. So we need to get this query string, and we need to get these um, params here like that. And as you can see from the app, we are sending the quiz type, and that's what we are using to display the content on this page inside our app layout. And this app layout is checking whether whatever you pass here matches any of our questions that we have there. So if it's matching a particular question, the title there, it will give us this page. But if it's not matching anything, as you can see, it will redirect the user back to the home page, which means if you select any stuff here or you change it to anything that we don't know about, then the user will be redirected to the home page to start again and pick the correct stuff from that page. So here too, we need to be able to get some of this information because we need it in order for us to be able to display some stuff like this accessibility and this icon here. So we need the question type or the quiz type in order for us to know which icon to show and the text to display it. Because this one now direct is coming from the layout. So, and we are on a particular page, which is the result page. So we need to be able to do this stuff. So we can borrow what we did here on the app layout to get our quiz type and at the same time the question data, and we can extract out what we need from that question. So here we need to use this our use params to get our quiz type from the params here, and at the same time we need to use these use questions so that we can get the data for that particular question. So I'm going to call this one a question data there. So after this, the next thing we need to be able to get here is a query params that we have there. And how do we get these query params? It's quite easy too, because the React router that we are using, so React router DOM that we are using, it's giving us these search params that we can use to extract what we need on the page. So here I'm going to be using this so that I can be able to get any information that I want from the query params here. And again, what do we need to do? We need to be able to show the loading state to the user, because when the data is loading, when we are processing some details here, we need to show the loading state or the UI to the user so that they can know that we're actually processing some stuff. This one is not really necessary because the data we want to work with is not something that's going to take a lot of time to process, but you always work as if the data you want to load might take time, because this is on the web, anything can happen. So, and you don't want your user to start saying like, oh, this application is not responding, or you don't even know what is going on, everything is just blank. So instead of us showing a blank screen to them while we are loading the data to get the correct stuff that we need for this page, we can show the loading to the user there. And once the data is back, then we can put it in the data and display it to the user. But how do we show our loading? So which means down here, we need to conditionally render some stuff that we want to display on the screen. So here we need to check whether the loading is there. So if it is loading, what do we want to do? We want to show a loader, which is a component we're going to create soon. But if there is no loading, then we need to check if there is no data. So if there is no data at all, what do we want to do? We just need to redirect them to the home page, because we don't know the information that you sent to us. So, and we can't display anything based on that wrong information. Maybe the user manipulated the URL and is not following what we're expecting there, or we get error when we are decoding the data, then we redirect the user to the home page. And here I'm going to use to so that it can take them to the home page. But right now we don't have this loader yet, so it's a component that we need to add there, which I'm going to go into this component folder, and we are going to create a new file here, which is going to be loader. No, so we want to create a new file, and it's going to be loader like this .jsx, and we just need to generate our components by using these snippets, which is something you can install by going to your extension and you search for React ES6. Okay, I'm not connected right now, but once I'm connected, I'm going to show you. Or coming here to is that this is the extension here. So ES7 plus React Redux. This is the extension that you need to search for in order for you to be able to use that snippets there. And we don't need this first line because with recent version of React, we don't need to start doing import React before this thing can work. And what do we want to do in this loader here? We want to show a circular spinner along with the text to give information to the user that something is actually going on the page. So I'm going to have a span, which is what I'm going to turn to circle, and it's going to be spinning there. And at the same time, we're going to have a p tag here, which is going to have the text that we want to show. But where is this text coming from? We need to receive it as a props because we want this component to be reusable. So anybody that wants to use component can actually use another text. But if the text is not being supplied, this is what we want to use by default. And once this one is saved, then going back to that page, importing the component and reload the page, we should see a loading spinner or the loading text showing on the page, because currently we don't have the circular stuff. So what we are going to have on the page is just going to be the text, and as you can see here, the text is showing, but we need to make sure that this loader is showing the way we want it to be. So how do we work on this? So we need to apply some style so that we can have the loader that we want to display on the screen. And what are the style that we need for this loading? So this loader here, I want it to be fixed because I want it to cover the entire screen. So it's going to be insert of 0. So insert means left, right, top, everything is going to be 0, as you can see here. So I want the z to be 1 here, which is going to have a z index of 1 because the data here is actually having a c index of 2. And once this one have a c index of 1, my toggle is going to be on top so that I can be able to toggle light and dark even though the loader is on the page. And that's the reason why I'm having this z index of 1. So after this, we need to give it the background. So on light mode, we want to use this. But when we're in dark mode, we want to use the BG. So we want to use the BG dark or BG black 55. So white, when we are dealing with light mode, and it's going to use dark when we, as you can see here now. So the white has covered up the page, but this one is still showing. So now if you go to this, as you can see, it's now using the dark or it's using the black version of the color when we are in dark mode. So we need to move the text to the center and the other content. So flex, so we need to display it as flex, items, center, justify, center like this. So we need to give gap of 2, which is going to be around that 0.5 or so, like that. But I don't want to keep scrolling left and right, so let's go to view, then word wrap, so that we can have all these other text on another line here. So the next thing we need to do is to give this one the class so that we can be able to see the spinning circle going on there. So what do we need to do? We need to give it the height of 6, then the width the same 6 because we want it to be a circular stuff. We need to make it a block because this is span. It is inline by default. So in order for the height and width to work, you need to make sure the element is not inline there. So, and we want the background to be gradient. So with Tailwind, you can use the BG gradient then to top right like that, so that the gradient moves towards the top right. Then from our color app purple like this, then to app green, so that it's going to be a gradient of purple and the green color that we've set up in our application there. And we want this thing to be round, so we need to use rounded full. And since we want it to spin to keep moving, we need to use animate that the tailwind is giving us. So animate spin like this. And if you want it to slow down a bit, so you can use duration, but I don't need to do that. I will use the default duration that Tailwind is setting up for us there. So saving this, and on the page, we should have a circle and the text spinning there. As you can see, we have this spinning board like that. So this text too, I need to give it some class so that we have this large text, and again too, we apply some animation on it too that Tailwind is giving us. This is going to be this animate pause. And what is pause? What pause is going to do is that it's going to give us this kind of a pause animation that you normally see there, where the thing will like hide and off there, like that. So you're going to see the sample. Let me save so that you can see what I'm talking about. And as you can see now, the text is giving this kind of a pause animation there, like that. And everything has been set up so the text should kind of be white where we're in dark mode, and it's going to go back to the normal color when we are in light mode, which is the default in Tailwind there. So now we have our loader. So what else do we need to do? We need to process the data that is coming from the URL. So the data that will pass inside this URL now, we need to extract out the details that is inside it. And how do we do that? So we need to use our effects, because we want this thing to run after everything has been loaded on the screen there. So here I want this my effect to run anytime the search params change, or for the like first time and when the search params change. So I want it to run this my effect again so that I can get the details that it is coming from the search params. And inside this place we need to create this function, and this function here is just what we're going to use to do the setup. So which I'm calling setup 2, and we call it down here. So inside the setup, what do we want to do? We need to use try and catch, because error might occur with what we want to do right now, because we need to decode the data. And you know, this decoding here, something that can cause error if the user manipulate the URL and supply the wrong stuff for us there. So the first thing we need to do is to actually get the data from the URL. So const data string, because everything in the query params is always string there, even though it is number. So if you put number there, everything is going to come back as string. So now our search params is a map, and since it's a map, on the map we always have this method known as get. And here, what do we want to get? We want to get D. What am I using D here? The reason why I'm using D is because that's the same name that it's using there. So that's the same name that we are using in the query params. So if you look at the query params here, D is corresponding to this D here. So we are using D to hold the data in the query params, and that's the reason why I'm using D. So if you are using data here or any other text, that's what you are going to use inside this box to get the data that you are looking for. And after we got this data, the next thing we need to do is to decode it. Don't forget, what we have in the URL is an encoded string, and that encoded string we need to decode it. So here I'm going to have this decoded string, which is going to be this B, or we are going to have this B to A. Don't forget what we used last time. It is A to B. So here now we need to reverse it, and since we want to reverse, or here what we used last time, so if I bring it back, as you can see, what we use here is B to A. So we need to reverse it by using A to B so that we can get our data. We are not encoding again, so we need to go back to A to B, and what we want to pass here is going to be this data string. After we've gotten our string, we need to convert it to a valid object. And you know, the way we did it last time, we change the object to string by using json.stringify. So it's the same thing here. We are going to use our pass to put it inside this object by using the same JSON. And this JSON too is having this method that we can use, which is pass. And inside the pass, what do we put here is the string that we want to convert to JavaScript object there. And as you can see, from the decoded string, we pass it in, we get our object, and the object that we're getting back, we are putting in inside our data so that we can use it later on anywhere we need it on the page. So here we are loading the data from the query params. After getting it from the query params, we decode it because we're having encoded string in the URL. So we have the encoded string in the URL. So we need to decode it. Then after we're done with the decoding there, then we move into the pass so that we can have it as a normal JavaScript object. And once everything is successful with this 3 line, we are putting it inside this our data. And if there is anything that goes wrong, what we can do here is to show the error to the user or do something else. But right now, I'm only going to console log out the error because we are handling it already here. So if there is no data the user will be redirected back to the home page because it means they tamper with the URL or something is wrong with the URL that they copy there. And if there is no error and there is error, whether there is error or no error, we still want to set our loading to false because when everything is done, we don't want to see the loading again on the screen there. So if everything is okay, the user is not going to see the loader, and what they are going to see is result page. But if something is wrong with the URL, then they will be navigated to the home page to start again because they have manipulated the URL or something is wrong with whatever they supply to us. And here I can see that use effect. I'm getting this error because we did not import the use effect. So let me import it and save. Now our application should work the way, and as you can see now, we are seeing the result page. So reload the page again, you're going to see a flash of loading and it will show the results because we've loaded the necessary data that we need. So what do we need to do now? So what we need to do is to have this layout where we have this text on the left and we have this detail on the right that we've extracted from the URL there. So let's go down and start putting all this in together. So the first thing I need to do here is to have this our container because this is the component that we created last time to be able to put content side by side like this instead of us creating the style again and again. Yeah. So inside the container, we need to have two sections. The first section is where we have the text. The second section is where we have the details and the button to go back to the home page there. So let me duplicate this line. And again, we need to make sure that they are of equal width. So what do we need to do? We need to give it this class which is going to be flex1. So in their parent is flex already. So this one and flex1, make sure that they take half of the screen. And inside this place, we need to put the text. Which text do we want to put there? We want to put the same text that we have on our home page. Because if you look at this in now, it looks like what we have from the home page there. So from there, I can just go back to the home page and get some of the details that we need there. So where is our home page? So on the home page, I have this text, which is this H1, and I can just borrow it here and display it in this place. So look at it now, we are repeating ourselves. What we can do is to make sure that this thing is a component and we pass the data that we want to use there. But for now, I'm not going to do that. So what do we need to put inside the box? We need to put this quiz completed. And for this down one here, what do we need to put here? We just need to put this, you scored, then followed by these three dots. So saved, and this one should be data like this. So save, and once this thing is saved and we check it on the screen, we should have the details display to the user. And this thing is mobile responsive because we've worked on the component that is wrapping them to display them on top of each other when we're on a small screen, and to put them side by side when we are on a bigger screen there. And once this thing is saved and is sent to the browser, as you can see, we're going to have it like this. And if you toggle your design mode, then you see that it's in place. So it's coming from that container, there is space, then you see that it's going to show the way it's supposed to show to the user based on the screen that they are working on. So where we need to spend our time here is inside this box, because inside this box we have two stuff here. So inside the box we have this white box, and at the same time we have this button, which is going to be a link that will take the user back to the home page there. And don't forget, we are dealing with both the light and the dark mode. So this is how it's going to look like when we're in dark mode, and this is how it's going to look like when we are in light mode. And don't forget, we have the responsiveness, but we've handled all this in from the container there, so we don't need to worry about this. The only thing we just need to worry about is the size. So on the tablet here, the size of this text is this 9 rem, and on the mobile, the text there is this 5.5, and I think it's the same thing too on the desktop. When you check, it's the same thing as the tablet, and as you can see, is this 9 rem. Other thing has been set up already except this color that we might need to change to add there. So let's put all this thing together. What do we need to do? Inside the box, or inside that section, we need to have this box and we need to have this button there. So inside this section, we need to have this div, which is where we're going to have the results like this. And after this one, we need to have our button. But this button here is supposed to be a link, because we need to click on it and it needs to take us to a page. So this button should be able to take us to a page by us passing this thing into it, by us passing this tool. But right now, this thing is not expecting anything like this from us. No props like this are from us. If we pass it, it's not going to work the way we're expecting it to work, because this button is not expecting any tool props from us, because it's just a normal button. What we need to pass into it is just the children and on click if we need something like that, as you can see here. So we need to make sure this our button is it's reusable for both button and link. And how do we do that? So inside this place, we need to make sure that we are displaying the correct element based on whether we have this tool or not. So if you have this tool, then we know that we want to return uh, link. But if you don't have to, it means we want to return button. And how do we do that? So this is where we do it. So if there is tool, what we want to do, we return link. If it's not, then we return the button back to the user. And inside this, we're going to pass the children, because that's whatever they want to display inside the link. And where is the link coming from? Don't forget, we need to import it from the React router DOM there. So let me load this stuff. And once this thing is done importing there, we are going to have it coming in to the screen. But there's another problem here. The other problem is that the star we have on this button, we need to have it too on the link, because it needs to look the same. So what do we need to do? We need to reuse this class. And in order for us to reuse the class, so I'm going to extract it out by putting it inside this variable here like this, so that I don't need to keep changing in two places if I need to update anything from it. So I'm going to pass this, and at the same time too, we need to make sure that the user of this class later on can send anything for class name in case they need to modify the stuff. So here I'm going to receive class name, but this one is going to be optional there, so which I'm going to set to empty string by default. If you want to modify anything on the button, just pass it. You don't need to come down here to start manipulating the class. So here we're going to pass these classes, and the same thing that we are passing to this button, we're going to pass it to link to like this. Save. Now this button can act as link, and at the same time it can act as normal button depending on whether we pass this tool or not. If you pass the tool, use the link. If you don't pass it, just use normal button, and the user can still do some stuff with the on click that I pass here like this. And once this thing is saved, go back to that page. Now our button is going to be a link, even though it's going to look like a button to the outside user. To the outside user, what they are going to see is button, but behind the scene is just a link there like that. And once this thing is done loading, then we should have our button on this. Currently it's using the old one because now it's not a link. And once this thing is done loading, you see that it switched this button now into the data being generated by the React router DOM link component there. Once everything is going to switch, as I see here now, that switch to what we are expecting like that. So what do we need to do now? In that parent, we need to make sure these two contents are placed on top of each other and there's a gap there. So what do we need to do? To flex code, because on the big man there, on top of it. What's the space in between them? So on the desktop, I can see 2rm, and on the mobile, what's the spacing that we have there? So on the tablet, it's going to be the same, but on the mobile, what do you have as the spacing? So on the box, go to the second box, as you can see, the spacing here is 0.5 rem. Why is my own rem? Why is it showing rem here? It's because that's what I'm using by default as the unit of CSS. It's going to be pixels, but my own, I've changed it to rem because I prefer rem compared to the pixels here. This one is going to be, the rem is going to scale based on the font size that the user is using on their system or phone or whatever gadget they are using to view the site. We need to use here, so this is going to be let's say 4 is 1 rem and 8 should be so this one is going to happen when we are on medium screen. By default, you should just use gap of this 3 or so like that. So gap of 3 should be around that same, so 7.5 like this. So inside this box, we need to make sure that have this background and it, and at the same time, the background is using the mobile one. It's using the navy one when we are in dark mode. So my default is white, and I have this box shadow which I won't be using right now. I'm going to use the tailwind box shadow. Class name. So what do we need to do? So this is going to be flex pool because the contents are placed on top of that. This one, as you can see, the gap in between them is just one rem like that. So flex pool like this. So the gap is 4. That's one rem like this. So the text should be center, justify, center, item, center. I want everything to be centered, just like the way it is here like that. So the BG by default is going to be wide. I want to add this shadow medium, then I want it to be rounded of around this XL like this, because that's what I'm saying on the email here. And inside box, what we need to display? We need to display icon and the text. But after we get the icon and the text, we can something like this already inside our app. So if you check the app layout, you see that we have something like that already where we are displaying this icon box and the text. So we can borrow it and we use the data that is coming from that page. So go back to the result page. Here we need to display this box. So import it. And once imported, we need to make sure that we're in all this icon background. Where is it coming from? It's coming from data. The data is the scope I want to display, so it's not matching. So we need to replace the data with the question data. And this one is going to give us the icon, and it's going to give us the title and the background that we want to use. And for this side, the quiz type, we can even use the quiz title. It's still going to give us the same thing, which is what I can use to relate this title, because the quiz type is just the same as the title. So save this one. Go back to the page, and we should have the container. As you can see here, we have a container, but there's no space inside the box. So let's look at quality on the mobile. The pen is 2 rem. What do we have on tablet? Because whatever tablet is, yeah, so it's 3 rem like that. So this container is going to have a padding, which is going to be P. So P should be 8, and on medium screen P should be 12, because the way this thing moves. So P8 should be 2 rem, yeah, and that 12 should be 3 rem. So now we can have the spacing that we're expecting around the box. Something missing here. We don't add the BG when we are in dark mode, so that the BG needs to be different, and which needs to be there. So let me check, let me confirm what we have to use when dealing with dark. So in dark, this container here is going to have navy, and we've set up this thing already. So BG navy here. So currently, it's still going to show the setup in see, which is not matching what's supposed to be there. So let's change it to navy. So same. Once we're in dark mode, then it's going to switch to the correct color. So in light mode we have this, and in dark mode we have this like that. So we've set up this part, and next thing is to set up our question here. So 5.5 on small screen, and it's 9 rem from medium and above. So let's work on this part. So we have this question box section. So let's so inside this one too, I'm going to have the inside this the my 8 for the question score. So what we want to display here? What we want to display is 8. How do we get 8? Don't forget setting the data. This past data is where the information is coming from. Which is something we can quickly pull up to see what we need to render once again. So console log as data, go back to the screen, check the console, and we should have the data that we want to show. Let this console, clear the console, reload the page, click downloading, and going to have we have total, and we have the correct. So what we need to display here is correct. The total is what we are going to display under it. So this is the correct and the out of the total that we need to supply here. So inside each one, we're going to have the data, then but correct like this is here. It's not available. Always make sure that you put something to it. So if it's available, show it. It's not available, display this. And under it, we are going to have so inside the data, we're going to have this app up of what. So the data, then but total are like this. But if you are available to show this empty or this icon added, because anything that goes wrong, so you always handle all edge cases. Even it might not happen, but you still handle it because you don't have application to crash or something to just happen anytime error call on the page. So and going back to the page, we should be able to see the content. You can see for 5 out of 67, which is the data that have been encoded inside. But we need to display it correctly because that's not the way it's supposed to show. I'm not seeing the padding around this box. So why we not having padding? So it means something is wrong with one of the party or what's going on. So here I have the gap for the BG shadow and I'm not putting any stuff where I put it. So this is the wrong side. So it's not supposed to be here. This is where it's supposed to put it here. So save. And what is okay? Padding is supposed to be around the container, not this box that we have at the yard. So everything is correct now. So we have the gap for so on the big screen actually have a medium. The gap should be 8 because we have this and we need to increase that box. Once everything is successful, so let me move this thing a little bit. I can have our code at the side and we can see everything. So now let's apply the style that we want. So this one, so class, so the class name, the class name, we need to have a text 5 area because I don't think they have this. Then when we get to the mission screen, we want our text to 9 rem. Then I want my leading to be normal. Leading is just the height, because I want to generating the context directly. So I'm going to add the line height. So I integrate it myself. And I'm going to use normal here for my line so that it doesn't generate unnecessary line height. So here too, I need to use this text 500 here, which is the font weight there, which is going to set everything once they get on loading there. So now here too, what we need to do, we need to apply some CSS there. So what we need to do, so let me go back to Figma and try to use for this one and the color. So this one is using the color of this light bluish, which is something that we did not save, but I'm going to use gray directly, or so I'm going to use white on dark mode. On mode, we just want it white, and on light mode, yeah, so I just want it white on dark mode. Because I need to change. Let me see. So what we have for this one on light mode is the dark navy. So light mode is our H1. We need to make sure that so it text navy like this. But when in dark mode, we want the text to be white. So save, go back page, and I want everything to be centered. It should be by default. So once it's on saved there, then we should have the content on the screen coming out. And I do something about button here. It's not centered. So let me quickly start. I'll go back into our button. Just need to align it to text center here, so that our text always be at the center. So save the button, and I can see we have the stuff. So going to the result page, I think this 500 not giving what I want. So what I can just do here is to use the tailwind semi brush like this, and saved, and we should have the correct stuff showing on the screen. So let me for it to load, and once it's downloading there, we should have the correct stuff. And I still see that the spacing, as you can see here, spacing is not balanced. And what is happening here is that the size that we set, the text is not all that. So we need to adjust the line height so that it works based on what we want this thing. So let me set it. As you can see here, the text is not involved in the line. What is happening there is the line height. So which means what I type here is not in that class. So yeah, so as you can see, leading normal, which is using this 1.5. So it's not 1.5 I want it to be normal, not just tailwind is using currently here. Yeah, so it's not 1.5 that I want. So let me change to this right. So scram normal, we have this, which should be 1. So let me just put my bar down. So I want it to 1, not just 1.5, so that we don't have this unnecessary space that is in between 45 and 67. So now we have this our button back to be on the page. And when this is done saving there, we should have that space closed. Yeah, so the spacing has been closed there. So toggle to dark mode, color is going to change, and going back there, we should have what we are expecting. And I can see that this thing is really small there, but for now, I will just leave it like that. And once we click on display again, then it's going to take us to the home page. So from home page, you can click on any of the question, and once it's clicked, we are going to get to the quiz page for the, and this thing is going to start moving to the next question. But here we need to add the option, which is what we're going to be doing in the next class, because there's a lot of things that is attached to that particular functionality. If you look at it, the user can have it empty like this, and when they pick any this is the design that we need to have. If that pick is correct, and this is the design and you need to show, but if whatever they pick on, you need to show the one that is right, and it is time for the one that they pick at wrong. And if they don't pick anything, this is what we are going to display out there. And if everything successful, they should be able to go to the next question and follow that same process until they are done with the entire question. And once they are done, then the user needs to be taken into that result page. But I want this to what I said earlier, because the result, this page, under where we're taken to this page, should be able to generate the data that we want to send to them, because this is where the data is generated, or the way the encoding of course and the total question that was answered are going to be handled. And what do we need to do there? So what we just need to do here is to just use this random stuff on the page there. So I'm going to generate some random stuff for now, random stuff, but we're going to replace it later on. So I'm going to have it here. So the result, total question is whatever the total question will get from the data there. And we generate some random stuff based on the total question, like the one that the user got correctly added. So we need to encode, we need to point to thing, and from there we need to encode the data so that we put it inside the URL. Just like what I did from the browser, so we need to do it from the code. So we convert data to this thing of we simplify the data, we encode data, and data that we encoded, we pass it into the URL. So we need to replace what we have here with the encoded data. Still the same thing later I just doing is to add the query appearance of this based on the data. Later on, this dot we're going to update it correct based on the total number of correct answer that user got. But now we're using this random number based on that question that we have it. And now once everything is done correct, so click on next, click on next, click on next. And once done, as you can see, it's going to generate some random number. And I can see here now something is wrong. So that's why I can see what I mentioned that time. You should be able to undo the error. Let me load the page and see what is going on, which is showing the same. So back to that page. So reload, load the stuff, and as you can see, everything is back because I didn't load before. So now it's showing 7 out of 10. Why is it 10? Because that total question was loaded and it's generating some random stuff based on the total question that we have there. So we try again, another one. So follow the same process. By the time you can see, if generate some random number within this range here, but that is going to be later on. This number should be based on the total number of questions that the user got correctly there. And that's what we are going to be doing in the next class. So thank you guys. We're going to see next week for the part 6 of the class. Bye bye.